Hey, this is Mason.
This is Duncan.
And you're watching
The Anatomy of Game.
Your dispensary for disposable opinions. Duncan, what are you eating?
Oh, some dry ramen. You want some?
No, I have my ramen exclusively moist.
Too bad. So what are you playing?
Well, lately I have been playing, well, to preface this, I just got a Nintendo DS for actually the first time.
Mm-hmm.
You were there, we went thrifting.
I was.
And I picked it up, it was like $20 fucking for the Nintendo DS, the charger, 2 games. The whole thing was actually pretty good. And so, despite the fact that I now have a DS, I've been using it to play Game Boy Advance games.
Right.
Revisiting the old favorites, I suppose. And I've been playing Pokemon Leaf Green, actually.
Which I let you borrow.
Yes, you did. So, it's kind of a rhetorical question, because you kind of knew the answer. But, all right, what have you been playing lately?
Well, ironically, a game that you gave me. Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about or anything.
No,
Nintendo 64 games, but
yeah, it's actually
it's quite appropriate.
It ties into this week's podcast, which we're doing on time. No 5-month break, which I said we weren't going to address, but here I am addressing it another podcast later.
But no, I missed playing Pokemon Stadium. It's a game I played way back in the day, at my dad's house. I never owned it. My stepbrother did, but I got to play a fair bit of it. Coming back to it now, it's a little different than I remember. But I'm sure we'll get to talk more about it later on in this video.
Yeah. As for Pokemon Leaf Green, I mean, most of you guys, Pokemon probably played Leaf Green.
Leaf Green's the one I played the most for Game Boy as well.
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story with Leaf Green because the Game Boy Advance was really one of 2 Nintendo consoles I owned as a kid, if you want to call it a console.
Right.
I had an N64 and I had a Game Boy Advance, which
you never had a GameCube?
Nah.
See, I had those and the GameCube. I'd say put it at 3.
I had all Sony except an N64 a friend of mine gave me, which we'll probably talk more about that in this podcast, actually. An N64 a friend of mine gave me, and for Christmas one year I got a Game Boy Advance SP in Hot Rod Red.
Oh, it's the best one.
Oh,
it's the best kind, man.
Yeah. And
it stands for super playable. And other things.
Yeah, I imagine it actually has. Regardless, that's not what we're talking about per se. But no, because my daddy actually used to clean.
Substantial platform.
Sure. Super portable? I don't know.
There you go. That's probably it right there.
I guess.
Wait, stationary / portable. It had everything.
Sure. But no, my old man, he used to clean hotel rooms for a living, like after people had left. And every now and again, he'd find something that someone would have left in it. And, there wasn't, like, a lot of protocol for, like, lost and found with that kind of stuff. It's
well,
like,
that's neat. At least you got something out of it.
Yeah. And so, every now and again, you find something. Usually it'd be, like, a hat or, like a movie that someone left, something like that. But one time he found a Game Boy game, and it happened to be Leaf Green. And so that was my kind of Pokemon game growing up.
I had that game stolen from me at a Irish step dancing fesh, which is a competition for Irish step dancing, for those who don't know. But obviously, I got another one because you now have it.
Yeah. How long ago was this?
Gosh, I must have been, I'd say like 11 or 12.
Okay, maybe whoever stole that from you went to stay at a hotel in Orlando, Florida, where I grew up, and left it in the hotel room for my dad to find.
It's quite possible.
And give it to me. And
no, it honestly is, because most of the time going on these feshes as a kid, that I was competing in, they were never, close to home.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're out of state, and most people who were there were also from out of state. So, hey,
there you go.
Could have been it.
Exactly,
it's not like
happened.
It was a real popular game. It was like, 5 kids in the country who had it. So,
yeah,
I'd say it looks good.
Most likely, I suppose. But anyway, you clicked on this video or you saw it somewhere, so you know what the topic is this week, which is our 5 favorite Nintendo 64 games. Duncan, you want to talk a little bit about Nintendo 64, kind of your connection to it?
Well, the PS1 was my childhood home console.
Sure.
And, my parents were split basically ever since I can remember. And my dad had the Nintendo 64. Actually, it was really his girlfriend, or actually, his wife's son's console. So that's what they had over there, and I was able to play it all the time. And, I had just as many games, if not more games, to play over there for the N64 than the PS1. Although I had more time on the PS1, I still, had a lot of experience on the N64 as a kid. And it's very different. I remember it took me some getting used to get used to that controller. I think to this day, that controller still needs some getting used to. But, it's interesting. The other day, playing Pokemon Stadium, it functions better using the left D-pad rather than the joystick. Because I remember talking to you about that. We may have talked about it in a podcast already about like how everyone kind of uses the controller differently.
Yeah,
I think I told you I've never done it that way. Using the D-pad, on the far left, but it's actually much better on Pokemon Stadium.
Interesting. Well, I would say my connection to the N64, it's a bit different. As like a kid, when it was sort of a living console, when they were still making stuff for the Nintendo 64.
Right.
I did not own one. I had a few friends who had one. I think I touched on this in my split
You were like
screen.
a teenager at that point, or?
I mean, I would have been
preteen, somewhere in there.
By the time I actually got one, I would have been maybe 11.
Well, I guess it's about the same time. Well,
yeah.
I probably started playing around like 8.
Yeah, so that would have been 10 years ago, 2006.
Yeah.
So the GameCube had been out for 5 years, and the Wii was already out by that point. So
right. You're talking about when you had it.
Yeah, when I finally got one. And I mean, we talked about it in my talk on the split screen gaming episode, where I had friends who had it, and that was sort of my view into the N64 at that time.
Yeah.
I'd go over to friends' houses, and normally it was playing split screen and stuff. And I had a buddy of mine. He was Mr. Nintendo. Not the guy who I did split screen gaming, who I was at the birthday party who introduced me to split screen gaming.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine growing up who was Mr. Nintendo, and so was his dad.
So they just they had every console,
Yeah,
they
his
played
dad-
every Nintendo game. What qualifies you to get the title of Mr. Nintendo?
The only consoles they owned were Nintendo consoles.
Was it all Nintendo consoles?
His dad had the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, and he had the N64 growing up, the GameCube, the Wii, and I believe he currently has the Wii U.
Well, what about the Game Boy?
Well, yeah, he had all the... Dude, he had, like, all the iterations, man. He had, like, the original Game Boy Advance. He had the Game Boy Advance SP. He was one of, like, the 6 people that got the Game Boy Micro.
I remember that.
Yeah, it did not do well. But regardless, like I said, he was Mr. Nintendo, but he was also kind of big on... His dad was kind of big on nostalgia and stuff, but my friend, he was not.
Right.
He had a Wii, and after he got the Wii, like, he never looked at the GameCube again. He never really looked at his N64 once he got the GameCube.
Right.
And so...
All about the latest and greatest.
Yeah. I was trying to buy his N64 off of him for... what that point in my life was an extravagant amount of money, $15. Because once again, we didn't. I think we talked about this in our last podcast.
You didn't get allowance or
I didn't get allowance or anything, so I had to
That was like birthday money, dog.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like birthday, Christmas money and stuff. And so I was trying to get. I had $15, and I was like, dude, I will buy 15. I'll get that for $15 because that was about the running yard sale.
And how old? $15 at how old?
Like 11.
Yeah, that's like a year's salary back then.
Yeah, basically. And that was like that was pretty much the going rates I'd seen at like yard sales and stuff.
Do you remember those growing up?
Yard sales, yeah. I mean,
it's like a field trip.
Yeah, I used to go yard sailing with people and stuff. It was actually pretty cool.
That's like the thrifting of youth.
Pretty much, yeah. Now we just go thrifting. But that seemed to be about the going rate at yard sales because around 2005, that's when people were starting to sell that old stuff. It was too old to be cool, but it wasn't old enough to be like retro or collector's items yet. You think about it, because
right.
It was about 5 years after the N64 was done. So think about it. The N64 has been done for 15 years now, and now it's kind of classic, which is why we're talking about it. But regardless, I was trying to get it off him for $15. He was trying to run it up to 30, which I really wasn't trying to spend. because that would have been like all the birthday money I had and not just half of it.
Right.
And his dad actually got mad at him. He's like, just give him the damn thing. And so under orders from his father, he actually gave me the Nintendo 64, which included a couple of games. Hey You Pikachu.
Score.
Yeah, which I actually kind of had some fun with when I was a kid.
That's Mason's number one.
Oh,
spoilers.
yeah, that's going to be my number one. Hey You Pikachu. I think it was non-responsive garbage, but it was fun. And
Isn't
also,
that the one with the voice recognition?
yeah, you got to talk to Pikachu and give like 16 of the same orders before it sort of figures out what you're trying to say.
Right, yeah.
It's like Pikachu speaks English as a second language. Pikachu, let's go fishing.
All it hears is like sim language.
Yeah. But it was Hey You Pikachu and Star Fox 64, which is the games that had come with it. And as a child, I accumulated some more over time, but that was my exposure to the N64. So I had kind of got I was a little late to the game, kind of like I am with the Nintendo DS, actually, because the DS dropped in fucking, 2005?
Yeah.
I just got one. I am just exploring.
Yeah, I'm very late as well. In fact, I never even had the DS. I've got the DSi.
Yeah. I just went online recently and started skimming around for used DS games so I can explore the library a little bit and actually see what there is to see. But so that's my connection to the N64. So we should start on our top 5. Now we're gonna do, if you listen to our PS1 top 5, which I guess 73 of you did.
We did it a little differently.
Yeah, we did it differently.
And we had just discussed like minutes ago that there's really a better way we could have gone about this.
And I promise we're gonna try to keep this one under 3 hours.
That's point number 1.
Yeah,
and bullet number 2, we're gonna do it alternating 5, 5, and then 4 and 4.
Yeah, that way we're not giving one person half the video to talk and the other person half the video to just kind of nod their head and go for like an hour. That's not cool. All right, so you want to hit yours first, or should I?
I'm gonna give it to you.
All right. Well, my first game is sort of a lesser known gem of the Nintendo 64. I try to bring it up, and whenever I do, most people don't know what I'm talking about. It's a game. It's a little game called Body Harvest.
Yeah, that's right.
Body Harvest.
You mentioned it earlier.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I know nothing about this, so this will be a lot of for me.
Well, Body Harvest is an interesting title because...
Do you harvest bodies?
No.
So it's like a Panic at the Disco song title. It has nothing to do with
the
content.
Mean, it has to do with an alien invasion, kind of a play on like the Body Snatchers, Body Harvest kind of thing.
But it makes so much sense. I get it.
Okay. Anyway, it was actually developed by DMA Design, which for the non-gaming history buffs among you, that was actually the studio that eventually became Rockstar North. So these were the people who went on to create Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, it's called Rockstar North?
Yeah.
Why North? Is there a Rockstar South? Like, do they have like a southern headquarters?
I think they're different divisions of Rockstar, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like this is basically the precursor to the studio.
It makes me wonder if that was before Rockstar Energy.
Yes, it was, I believe. Yeah, I think so. But regardless, these are basically the people who went on to create Grand Theft Auto, and it's one of the fascinating parts about this game is you can actually see some of that influence in this game.
Oh, that's interesting. Like the free roam aspects, or
I mean, it's not like big open world or anything, but like the levels are open. Like you're basically they're different areas where like alien invasion is happening, and you're at a site, and it's sort of like a big open area. It's not like a linear level.
Right.
It came out in 1998.
So kind of like how like a Spyro level might be set up.
Kind of like that, yeah. But one of the interesting things, and why I say you can kind of catch the Rockstar influence there, is like if you see a vehicle, you can hop in the vehicle. Like you just kind of take it and you drive it around.
That's really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool because I've never heard of a game where you could do something like that, like that old. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, it was limited. It was very limited, but it's something that I find very fascinating. I'm like, okay, these guys went on to create Grand Theft Auto. Yep, they still like it when you grab cars right off the map and fuck around with them. Like, that's still something they like to do. And that's really kind of the reason why it's on my list in the first place. There's sort of a freedom about this game. It doesn't do everything super well.
Well, were there alien vehicles you could pick up, or was it just like human vehicles?
I didn't think it was just human vehicles.
Was it like cars?
Like cars and shit, yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, it's not it's one of those games where it's got a lot of cool stuff in it. Not everything is mind-blowing, which is why it's number 5. It's not number 1.
Yeah.
But it's certainly different than any of those N64 games I played before.
It seems like it. So you actually play as a member of this alien invasion? No,
you're fighting the aliens.
Okay.
Is it
a shooter?
It's a third-person
shooter.
Yeah, you shoot around stuff. It's been a long time since I played this game, so might be a bit hazy on those details. But that's one of those things that's very interesting. It's got more freedom than a lot of those N64 games do.
It sounds like it's reverse Destroy All Humans.
Kind of. Man, we should talk about Destroy All Humans sometime. Man,
we should get that game sometime.
Oh, dude, that'd be great.
Hey, can we get an HD remake of that for the PS4?
Or just make a PS4 installment of that game?
yeah. Let's get that.
That was a fucking great game. All right, but it's kind of enough on Body Harvest. Like, it's an interesting game. You should check it out if you haven't heard of it. It's just remember, it's the guys who made Grand Theft Auto, or who were going to make Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
So just for that, it's interesting to check out.
Yeah, it's interesting information there.
What is your number 5?
Well, we're bringing it back to the Pokemon Stadium.
Okay.
That's my number 5.
Right on.
Do you have any... Did you play this game at all? Did you have any experience with it?
I played Pokemon Stadium with Mr. Nintendo for a little while. Back when I was a kid. That's what he's going to be
I feel like
called.
that's a character in a Nintendo game.
Maybe.
Like, it just sounds like some kind of actual Pokemon character you meet or something.
Mr. Nintendo.
Yeah. I don't know. They always had like quirky names like that for like the actual like main characters.
I suppose that's true, but but no, he had Pokemon Stadium. Eventually, we switched over to Pokemon Coliseum on his GameCube. But,
yeah. Okay. So I've played Coliseum a little bit. Actually, like, okay. So Pokemon Stadium is my top 5. It's not number 1. For the reasons being that it's a fine game, but like what kind of came after with Pokemon Coliseum, there's things in Coliseum that I wish were in Stadium, because you had the kind of like the free roam element, or and you could walk around. There's an adventure, right? A story mode in Coliseum, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't have that in Stadium, and coming back to the game, it doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of replay value without that, because it's a little odd, because you got all the original Pokemon, the 150 at your disposal.
Sure. Which,
in one respect, that's really cool, because you've got all your favorite original Pokemon to choose from.
Sure.
But it's just so weird. I think it's weird that you don't unlock your Pokemon. There are 2. It's Mew and Mewtwo. I forget how you get them. You probably got to beat like all the gym leaders and stuff.
Yeah.
But Pokemon Stadium's cool. It was like I believe it was the first Pokemon console game. I want to say it is.
Yes, I think.
It's definitely the first like battler.
Yeah.
In the sense where like it's literally just the Pokemon battles. Like that's really there are mini games.
Mm-hmm.
Which, playing them recently, it actually really feels like kind of like a Mario Party kind of setup. How the mini games are, which is interesting.
So what I'm getting from you is that it's cool and it's got a lot of cool stuff, which I agree with you, but it lacks a sense of like reward and progression.
Like, what's there is done really, really well. Like all the sprites. Technically, do sprites have to be 2-dimensional? Like, is that what?
They have to be models in 3-dimensional. So all the character models.
Yeah, like they're very. It's actually really impressive for the Nintendo 64. I guess it's just because that's really all that it is.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely is really well done, and it seems like every 3-dimensional Pokemon game since Pokemon Stadium is kind of modeled after Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah.
Even with the new, I haven't played them. I'm sure you haven't either, but you might have seen X and Y.
Yeah.
You know how they've gone through the full 3D thing.
Yeah.
It's set up pretty much the exact same way with how the cameras are, how
Yep.
the movements of the Pokemon and everything.
As they should be. I mean, Pokemon Stadium, it did Pokemon battles in 3D right.
Yeah, it did. That's the thing. Like, it's really, really rewarding to play the battles, but like I said, it does run a little dry since it's just that.
Yeah,
know?
I mean, we were playing it yesterday, and I think that's really kind of what a lot of these N64 games are really good for, is getting with some friends.
Yeah.
And playing the game. And like yesterday, like, you were kicking my ass, and somehow on my last Pokemon,
Yeah, you just came right back.
smoked all three somehow.
Which Pokemon was that?
Jeez.
I feel like it was a Sandshrew or something.
It might have been like
Or like a Cubone.
Might have been like Sandshrew or Cubo. Something that shouldn't have worked. It worked. But regardless, Pokemon Stadium. I agree, and also, like you were saying, the graphics are incredible. Like, we were playing it yesterday. It was like,
It holds up.
yeah, everything.
In fact, a lot of
real
games on
smooth,
that
yeah.
console really do.
The games that didn't try too hard to have lots of stuff, I think, hold up really well.
Yeah.
The cartoonier the game is, the better it looks. Going back to like GoldenEye or something is kind of fun, honestly. So number 4 time.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Super Smash Brothers on the Nintendo 64, the original Smash Brothers.
See, I debated putting this on, and I really feel like I should have, but there's just too many games. I didn't play it a whole lot, but god damn, did I play the shit out of it when I could.
I gotcha. Well, Smash Brothers, I mean, obviously, you got to give it love, because if you love Melee, if you love Brawl, if you love the new one.
Well, you know me, I'm more of a Smash guy than you are.
Yeah.
And that's because of Melee.
Yeah. But, like, if you love any of those games, you got to give it up to the first one, because I mean, if you play the original Smash Brothers, and then you play the newest one on Wii U, almost everything is already there in the first one. They've just built upon it.
Yeah.
The gameplay
It is one of those games that they genuinely just kind of they built on it. Like, they didn't change really a lot of anything. You know, the game is still there.
And
just expanded it.
And like I said, if you love those kinds of games, then you gotta hand it to the original Super Smash Brothers. And it's still fun. It's still a balanced fighter. Obviously the character roster is pretty small comparatively.
Yeah, that's true. If you haven't played it, but you have played the new ones, you really, if you can, you got to check it out. Because it's just as solid as the others. Just, you know, it's minimal, but it's you know, it's Smash Bros nonetheless.
Yeah, and I would say,
who's your favorite character?
My favorite character to play as, in the original Super Smash Brothers, would probably be either Link or Samus.
Oh, nice. Mine was probably, I don't know. I don't really remember because it's been a long time, but I do remember Pikachu is actually the top tier in that game.
I think so, yeah. But I don't know. For me, it was just, I mean, obviously,
Fox is fun.
Fox is cool. When I was younger, Samus was the character that I knew the least about, which made Samus immediately more interesting.
I feel like that's one of like the most underrated franchises of Nintendo.
Metroid, yeah, and like they ignored Metroid. Like, there's not a N64 Metroid game.
No.
They really kicked it up on GameCube.
From Super Nintendo to GameCube, yeah.
Yeah, and they kicked it up on GameCube, but there wasn't one for the N64, which is disappointing. But Samus was immediately interesting because it's like, oh my gosh, it's like some kind of robot space marine thing.
It's like a buff female version of Mega Man.
Yeah, it's really
with a Halo helmet.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. So
Mega Halo woman.
Mega Halo woman. And it's interesting because I don't like fighters very much. I think we've talked about this. Fighting games just don't do it for me. And I think you're pretty much the same way, as I recall.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I think Smash Bros. Is the one thing you and I can agree on when it comes to fighting games, if you would classify it as such.
I mean, the only thing it comes close to being other than that is like a party game, and I wouldn't necessarily qualify it as in a traditional
technically
sense.
It's like it is a fighter, but it's like under the subgenre of a side-scrolling, or how it's like a side-scrolling platformer fighter.
Yes, but I mean, it's still.
Now think about it, how many other fighting games do you have platforming on?
I guess that's true.
Like, that's really what's special about it.
I guess that's true. Yeah, but regardless, I still would consider it in the fighting genre.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And as someone who kind of hates fighting games for the most part, you know, I never really liked Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or any of those titles. And, you know, not any hate on those necessarily. It's just they don't do it for me.
Yeah, well, we can both agree. It's just not our thing.
Yeah,
like,
I just don't have as much fun on those.
I mean, I've played some. I think the one I've had the most fun on is the newer one, Injustice, the Marvel one.
Yeah, it's DC.
Or DC.
Dude, the internet will rain fire on you for that. No, Injustice, I actually like the story in Injustice more than I like the game.
The cross-universe thing.
Oh, it's so good.
And by good, you mean bad.
I mean, it's great.
As in horrible.
Yeah. It's horrifying. All right, well, what is your number 4, Duncan?
My number 4 is Turok 2 Seeds of Evil.
Turok 2 Seeds of Evil.
I believe we touched on this in Split Screen.
I think
we did because we were comparing it to GoldenEye a little bit with the multiplayer.
Okay.
Yeah, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. It's a crazy game. In fact, if we're talking about games that are praised on graphics, it's interesting that you said like the games that are the most minimalistic and perhaps cartoonish, if you will, seem to be the ones that hold up the best graphically.
Sure.
But I really feel like Turok 2 kind of transcends that opinion because, I mean, you've seen the graphics, right?
Yeah.
That game looks freaking amazing.
It does look pretty good, I will say that.
I remember all the guns in that game look super interesting and cool. It has a really cool style. That game just took the first game and just, I don't know, it's like they just like had like a super bombshell baby out of the first one and just made like a giant magnificent jizz. For lack of better terminology.
Is that what you're going with? Okay.
It has a robust story mode it's actually incredibly difficult. One of the reasons I really love the game, because you actually have to get good at it and really like you could actually like employ strategy in that game a little bit. It's just a really enthralling shooter.
Okay.
In the split screen, I think you and I played a little bit of the multiplayer. That's a lot of fun. I think we said it before, but it's a lot like GoldenEye.
Yeah.
In its own way. Mm-hmm. It's got the interesting level designs like in GoldenEye. But what really sells it is the single player mode. It's incredibly long, incredibly grueling, and it's a real treat. Like the graphics are great, the sound designs are really cool. You've got tons of different weapons at your disposal, all that do crazy, amazing things. Mm-hmm. That game definitely holds up today. I remember playing it though. I think one of the reasons I played it so goddamn much is because it was one of those N64 games that you had to have your it had to save on your Rumble Pack.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I could never get that to work, even with batteries in my Rumble Pack. Mm-hmm. It must have been something wrong with the save card on it or something. Yeah. But every time I turned the game off, I'd have to start all the way over at the beginning. So a lot of times I'd just leave my Nintendo 64 on, go to sleep at night, and then play it again.
Like in pause mode or something?
Yeah.
Well, hey, you do what you must.
And that was actually, interestingly enough, one of my first games that I actually messed around with cheat codes on.
Okay.
By the way, that might be an interesting topic later on.
Oh,
cheat codes.
I write that down. Write it on the whiteboard.
Top 10 cheat codes.
Jeez, I really have to dip back into my nostalgia.
Yeah, right. But yeah, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. That's my number 4. Great game.
All right. Well, then we're moving on to the number 3s.
3.
I believe. My number 3 may be a touch controversial. Not for what game it is, but for the fact that it is only at the number 3 slot, and that
I know
is
what's coming.
Ocarina of Time.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I know for a fact there are some people who would be very upset.
Hey, it's not in my top 5 at all, so they should really be jumping down my throat.
Oh, shit.
The thing is, well, I can justify that because I've never actually played it on the N64. I've only played it on emulator. I never had it. You know how it is when you're a poor-ass kid?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
You have the games you got, you know? Like,
and you resort to piracy. Bastard.
Years and years later.
Yeah.
When I was a different man.
No, but the Ocarina of Time, which is...
The Ocarina of Time?
The Ocarina of Time. It's not just an Ocarina of Time.
Oh, and its sequel, The Majora's Mask.
Yes. Anyway, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is...
a game.
It is certainly a game. And I would say it's probably my favorite 3D Zelda game. Nobody kill me, please.
I don't think anyone's gonna kill you for that.
No,
like,
but
that's a fair
the
thing
fact
to
that
say.
my favorite 3D Zelda game is my third favorite on the console that it's on.
Well, this game does deserve praise.
It does deserve praise, and I would say the N64 to me is notable because it is the limited console. When you talk about PlayStation versus N64, the N64 is the one most notably hampered with limitations. The cartridges versus discs really hurts a lot of the N64 titles, especially in the graphics and audio department, I would say.
Sure.
You don't get full voice acting in most N64 games, and when you do, the audio is really bad.
Where are you going with this?
Calm down. And as a result, I feel like the N64 lacked a little bit in having big, sprawling games with massive beauty.
I see
and
where
scope.
this trail is heading.
Like we talked about Spyro the Dragon on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I would say Ocarina of Time
is Nintendo 64 Spyro.
Well, I guess to be fair, that would make Spyro the PlayStation's Legend of Zelda. But I would say that even with the N64's hardware limitations, Ocarina of Time does on occasion reach those same heights that I feel that Spyro.
Do you remember
reached.
how big the main hub part of that
the
game
Hyrule
is?
Fields and everything?
Yeah,
it was
crazy huge.
So I'm saying it's sprawling and it's beautiful.
That Ocarina of Time is really when you think about it, it really is the classic original third person 3D adventure RPG.
Mm-hmm. And
there's so many that game paved the way for that style of game.
Well, I would say it's not necessarily an RPG so much, but I would say it is the quintessential adventure game.
Okay, well, at least you agree on that.
Yeah, especially on the N64, I would say. I think
it's totally an RPG.
But where's the stats and everything? It's
I mean, is that really what justifies an RPG?
It's a big part of it, yeah.
I think that's just it's nice when that stuff is there, but you do upgrade your character, you upgrade Link, and you follow through a story. You're playing as a character, you're playing the role of Link.
Wouldn't you say that in that respect, most games are RPGs because there is some kind of progression?
There's a big debate about it. Technically, yes.
I mean, you're playing a role, so I mean, I guess, but I mean, in what we consider to be RPGs, I don't think Ocarina of Time falls into it. But that's a different debate for a whole different podcast. What I'm getting at is the Ocarina of Time is a game.
You keep saying the
Ocarina of Time. Fuck you.
It's like you're talking about the actual item in the game.
Yeah. The Ocarina. Now, Ocarina of Time. It's just the scope and the scale of the game.
Yeah.
It is incredible and at times breathtaking, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel like a grand adventure, and when you play the game, in my mind, there is a sense of grandiose importance about it.
One of my favorite things about the game is that a lot of things weren't straightforward at all.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, they'd give you no hints sometimes, and you just really have to just fuck around and beta test the shit out of it to figure out what the fuck to do.
And it is an experience, I would say. The gameplay, I'd say, is solid.
Solid enough. I mean,
the controls are tight.
I didn't have the best roll go at that because I was playing with a freaking keyboard.
Oh yeah. So you played it the wrong way, you fucking pirate.
I mean, that's got to be pretty close to the ease of a Nintendo 64 controller,
I suppose. But honestly, I would say that the gameplay actually kind of takes a backseat to just the experience of the game and the adventure. And that's why it's not number one on my list, I would say, because what makes the game enjoyable isn't tight controls, it isn't necessarily engaging fights, although the battles in the game are engaging.
Right.
It is the experience of the game, it is the adventure. And that being said, I don't even know if fun is the right word to describe the game. It's certainly a fun game. I would say it's not the most fun game on my list. It is
I'd say it's one of the most immersive titles for N64.
Probably. But that's kind of my reasoning for putting it on number 3, is that it's an experience, and there is a game there to be played, but I would say the experience outshines the actual game.
Okay. Makes sense.
What's your number 3?
My number 3. My number 3 is Yoshi's Story.
Yoshi's Story. Now, this is a game that I really haven't played much of, except with what you've shown me.
I am a huge Yoshi fan.
Okay.
I love Yoshis.
Right on.
Yoshi's my favorite Smash Bros. Character.
Okay.
I've played every Yoshi game.
All right.
I dream of Yoshis.
I believe you.
I wish I had a Yoshi plush doll.
I hope that's all you wish.
I used to want Yoshi tattoos, but I'm having second thoughts.
Okay, well, that's probably a good idea.
No, I wanted to have a sleeve of Yoshis on my left arm.
Just all Yoshi.
Yeah, like different colors, like every single color. And like eggs, too, of every color.
That would be your right arm.
I don't even know. Maybe like R-Wings.
No. Your right arm would be Yoshi eggs, and your left arm would be Yoshi. All right. Well,
with a surprise Birdo just in there.
Why not? But now sell this game to us.
Yoshi Story. God, another game that's I just have to praise graphically. In a completely different way than all the rest, because all Yoshi games they're kind of set up like Mario games.
Sure.
You know, it's a 2D side scroller, but this is a 2D game in the 3D style. You know how like all of the the side scrolling games are made nowadays. They're 2D with they're actually 3D, but they're played 2D. If you've ever played, you've never played a Yoshi game, really.
I mean, I've played a little bit with you. You showed me it before.
And we did play Woolly World a little bit.
Yeah, and I played Yoshi's Island in the past as well. Yoshi's Story is the one I have the least experience with, but it is kind of a 2D game, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, I'm going to do a callback to our PS1 video.
Okay.
Remember, if my number one, as you remember, was Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
Which is a 2D kind of Metroidvania RPG game.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I said about it, which I think applies here as well, is in a generation where it was all about moving everything to 3D, instead of experimenting with maybe a newer technology, the people who developed that game took it upon themselves to say, well, let's make, with this advanced hardware, the 2D game we could have never made before. Let's make the best version of this 2D game.
That's pretty much what Yoshi's Story was all about. Because before that, you had Yoshi's Island, another fantastic game.
I had fun with that one.
With that one, you've got Baby Mario involved, and in this one, this is the first straight up Yoshi game.
Which is why Yoshi's Story appeals to me, because Baby Mario is probably my least favorite part and probably everybody's least favorite part. I mean, it's almost bandwagoning at this point.
I got this damn fucking baby stapled to my back.
Yeah, it's like it's a babysitting simulator. Essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that part was kind of annoying, but yeah, there were new colored Yoshis introduced in Yoshi's Story. Random fact: you had black and white added. They got rid of some colors too. The original game had purple and orange, or maybe it was brown. It was either brown or orange, but those two did not appear in Yoshi's Story.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was just so cool to see all the new features that they could add in a Yoshi game, which, like I said, is kind of set up like a Mario game.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see all those new features added, with the 3D flair. I think it really enabled the game creators to kind of go above and beyond and try new things with the genre. Yoshi's Story.
Yoshi's Story.
Yeah, I played a ton of that as a kid.
It's a really good looking game. I will say that.
That's what it's got a very particular
art style.
Yeah, it is. It's like, for one, it's got the whole pop out storybook element to it, right?
And
it has that style, but besides that, the way it's just done graphically is very, very appealing.
Well, I mean, like we were saying, in a world where everyone was taking a chance with 3D, they were experimenting. They just instead of moving on to something new and maybe risky and experimental, they perfected what they've been working on for the past, at that point, 10 years? 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So, which I think is probably a good move. They use that hardware to kind of perfect what they had before.
If there's anything good you could say about Yoshi games in general, is that at every point when a Yoshi game was put out, it was basically top of the line graphically. Yoshi's Island was incredible graphics for its time. Yoshi's Story, same thing. And with Woolly World, god damn, that game looks good. It looks so freaking clean.
Yeah, the yarn, all that yarn, man. Imagine all the animation, just the effort that went into doing that.
Yeah. I mean, Yoshi is like playing a Yoshi game is like it's a more colorful and vibrant Mario, like in terms of how the game is.
I'd say that's a good way to put it.
But as you know, Yoshi's Story was actually kind of my first experience with a side scroller because I played Yoshi, both Yoshi's Island and Yoshi's Story, far before I ever played a Mario. I don't think I've ever owned a Mario game. I think I've had one for Game Boy Advance, and it was like Super Mario World 2.
You have Mario 64.
It's not a side scroller. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Yeah. I should have clarified. But yeah, as my introduction to the side scrolling genre of gaming, Yoshi's Story, even before Yoshi's Island, actually Yoshi's Story takes that place for me.
Right on.
Fuck yeah.
All right, so then I guess we're moving on to the 2s, huh?
Yep.
All right, now we're really getting into some controversial territory, not just because of the game specifically that I chose, but the fact that I put it over fucking Ocarina of Time because I hate success and popularity. Number 2 is Donkey Kong 64. Now, this is a game that, for whatever reason, has garnered quite a bit of unpopularity. And in recent years, I've noticed kind of a resurgence in love for this game. But I remember, sometime after its release, because it was one of the latter 64 titles, I think it came out in like 2000. Mm-hmm. So right before the GameCube came out.
One of the only ones to have a colored cartridge.
Yeah, very true. Very nice yellow cartridge. But it was not particularly well received.
I don't see how that is. Like, I never really looked into it, but I do remember it was a fine game.
I love that. Obviously, it's my number 2.
Yeah. And you just gifted it to me. Thank you, Mason.
Yeah, no problem. That's how you get free games. Just be my friend, I guess. Just buy people video games. That's what it's starting to seem like on this goddamn podcast. But no, Donkey Kong 64 is a game that I think it benefits from being a later day N64 title in the sense that it kind of gets to use everything that's good about the N64. That was pretty much the peak of its hardware.
Okay.
This was, like I said, towards the end of the time the N64 was running, so the developers were pretty much at the top of their skill with the console. They were as used to the console as they possibly could be, and they were pushing the hardware pretty much to the extent of its limits.
Yeah, it was probably like 2 or 3 years after it was discontinued, right? N64 games.
I mean, it came out in 2000, and the GameCube came out in 2001.
Really?
Yeah. So
they were still making N64 games past the GameCube.
Yeah, but
even new games.
Yeah, but it wasn't kind of like how it was like they were running PS2 games for fucking 5 years after the PS3 came out.
Yeah. Which
is ridiculous. Like, I think they discontinued it officially in like December of 2012 or something.
That's crazy.
It's a year before the PS4 came out. But regardless, I like I said, I think it benefited from being a later day N64 title.
It's crazy to think that PS2 and GameCube are basically retro consoles now.
Yeah, I mean they launched 15 years ago now, so it's crazy.
We're old.
Damn it. But anyway, I think graphically it is sort of at the pinnacle of N64. The music is incredible.
Anything by Rare has incredible music.
Yeah, well...
anything by Rare, at that point, was pretty much an incredible game.
Yeah. Grant Kirkhope did the music for that. He also did the music for Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, okay.
He did the music for GoldenEye. Most of the Rare games except Conker's.
Oh, okay.
I forget who did the music for Conker's, but it wasn't Grant Kirkhope. It was a friend of Grant Kirkhope's.
It was someone genius, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Grant Kirkhope was the composer, did some great music for that game. And, I mean, it was very much in the Rare style. There was a lot of collecting going on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hopping around cool environments, I felt. And it wasn't that you got a ton of abilities, but you got to play as a ton of different characters. Each of them had a really kind of unique skill set.
Yeah,
which I had a lot of fun with. And it was just a really kind of fun world to kind of step into.
I liked how, one thing that I thought was really cool about that game is you could explore the water, couldn't you?
A little, yeah, you could swim. And you could,
A lot of games back then weren't a fan of
No.
being in the water.
well, I mean, water, I guess, when you have swimming in a game, I guess the physics in water are entirely different than the physics in the rest of the game.
I mean, in real life, it's kind of different, so.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I guess designing a whole separate physics just for small water segments, I feel like a lot of people didn't want to do
I thought
it.
you could, like swim to different islands and stuff, couldn't you?
It's been a little while.
I think I remember there being that, like,
Yeah, I believe-
maybe not super far away, but, like...
And I believe there's some underwater swimming as well, which is weird because
Perhaps.
they're fucking apes who notoriously cannot swim. But whatever. Whatever, I'm not here to judge. But
apes.
that's really why it's number 2 on my list. It's not necessarily because it's like, oh, there was this amazing adventure or this and that. It's just everything in the game I felt was done with excellence.
Hey, man, it's your opinion.
Yeah, no.
I mean, sounds good to me.
Just I felt the whole world was really fun to visit.
Uh-huh.
The graphics were incredible. The music was incredible. The gameplay was tight. All of the characters were, in my opinion, uniquely fun and different to mess around with.
And you put it before Ocarina.
I
Hey, man, remember, everyone who's listening, their opinions are disposable. It's okay.
Our opinions are just that was the thing I said at the beginning of the podcast.
I thought you were talking to them.
No, your dispensary for disposable opinions. We dispense disposable opinions.
I was totally seeing it the other way around. I
No.
thought you were being pretentious.
No, I was just being a dick.
Well, there you go. What you say doesn't matter.
It's disposable.
It's even better.
Yeah, but that's why I like it's just excellence. I'd say the game is the culmination of everything that was great about the N64. Everything the N64 could do, in my opinion, was done really well in Donkey Kong 64. Graphics, gameplay, fun, just jumping into kind of a wacky situation in a wacky world and just enjoying it and collecting a shit ton of stuff.
Dat rap.
Oh, yes.
Which you will not recite.
No, we will not. Yeah, it's funny because if you ever want to hear more about the music in this game, Grant Kirkhope, who did the music, he actually did an episode with the Game Grumps.
Oh, yeah?
Where for an hour they just played through a bunch of the rare games he did music for. And he was just kind of talking to them about it and everything. And he was talking about like the composition of the music and
I'd like to see that,
and
actually.
making those games. You should, yeah. It was when JonTron was in Game Grumps too, so it was,
goody.
It was my favorite era of Game Grumps.
Some Timon and Pumbaa action.
Basically. JonTron sounds exactly like fucking Timon from The Lion King, though. Don't tell me he doesn't, alright?
Dude, I'm sure he gets that way too much. We
No one
we don't need
says
to put that out publicly.
I've never heard anyone say it.
I know, but it's just one of those unspoken things. It's like, yes, that's why people like to listen to him, because he sounds like Timon. Like, and
Probably.
Timon's got such a great voice.
Yeah,
like,
but regardless, I felt like I had to say it because I'd never heard anyone fucking say it.
I guess I haven't heard anyone say it either.
Yeah, but regardless, I guess everyone was thinking it. No one was saying it. Now it's out there. That's when they come for me.
Send us a letter, JonTron.
Yeah. Fuck you, John Jafari. No kidding, you're great. We love you.
Oh, did you see his new video?
Oh, when did you put up a new video?
I don't know, but it's like he did another. What's that generic shooter? It's like a
Counter-Strike?
Yeah, he did another Counter-Strike.
I love how I knew immediately.
It was with someone else. I checked out his channel. It was like H3H3.
Okay, so it wasn't like an episode. All right, but that is my number 2. Donkey Kong 64. If you hated it back in the day,
then fuck you.
Well, no, I say give it another chance. Just look at it again. Really kind of immerse yourself in the world of Donkey Kong, man.
Nah, fuck you.
Feel the Kong. All right, what's your number 2?
Nothing wrong with the Kong.
Exactly. Now, what's your number 2, you bastard?
My number 2 is a little game called Star Fox 64.
Ooh.
Which, isn't that your number 1?
It is my number 1. Surprise! We got, okay, so that's my whole list. So we're going to gush about Star Fox together. Then you can gush about whatever your number 1 is.
Yes! Me,
right.
only me.
Yes, just you.
You can't talk.
Okay.
You can talk too. Yeah, so Star Fox 64. Moment of silence for the greatness of this game.
Yeah, moment of silence for the great. Well, we got another one coming out, so we should be psyched for that.
It's the only reason I have a Wii U.
Star Fox 64. You want me to say it? Because, I mean, it's my number 1. Your
Say
number
what?
2,
Say what?
Just talk about it. Because you seem to be in silent admiration right now.
This game. No, this game is. Mason, tell us what this game is.
This game is dope. All right, so I'm going to do a callback for a second. Remember I said I got an N64 from my buddy, Mr. Nintendo.
That fucker.
Upon order of his father.
Yes.
The only time anyone's ever been ordered to give me something.
Fox! Help me! Damn it, Slippy!
But it was my first N64 game that I owned. And it's what made me fall in love with the console. It really is. And maybe that's why it is my number one. Because I kind of view it...
See, it's interesting. That's the game that had me fall in love with the console as well. But my number one is what made me re-fall in love with the console.
Well, we'll get to your number one.
We will get to it.
Yes, we will. But it was the game that made me kind of fall in love with the console. And maybe I am viewing it through that lens of nostalgia. You know what I mean? Fuck you, dude. Maybe it is. What's wrong with that?
You'd like to.
Maybe it is gay. What's wrong with that?
I mean, as long as you'll play it with me, we can...
It's 2016, you bastard.
What's that got to do with shit?
But
this is Star Fox, man. Keep it on topic. Do a fucking barrel roll.
Anyway, maybe I am a bit nostalgic, and maybe it's unfair to say it's the best, but it's my opinion, so fuck you.
I think we'd say it's the best Star Fox game.
Well, certainly. By pretty much default, honestly, when you look at some of the other games. But we might talk about them in the future, regardless.
A Star Fox podcast?
Ooh.
Starcast. That sounds a lot like Starcade. Damn it, JonTron!
Foxcast.
Foxcast.
Not bad.
We gotta have the intro with Foxy.
No, god damn it, no.
Yes.
Anyway, Star Fox 64 is an incredible game. I love it very much, and it is the game that made me fall in love with the N64. It's the game that kind of made me fall in love with Nintendo as a kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, had
it's another game that really holds up graphically, too.
Yeah, and I had a Game Boy Advance as a kid, but the Game Boy Advance at the time was kind of the only big mobile console. So it wasn't so much like I was flying the Nintendo flag, so I bought it in advance, because at that point, you didn't have the PSP yet or anything.
Right.
And so I had the Game Boy Advance not because I loved Nintendo per se, although I had no problems with it, but because it was the mobile console to have.
Mm-hmm.
But the N64 is really what made me kind of look at Nintendo and be like, you guys are fucking great. And Star Fox is kind of the reason that happened for me.
The most underrated feature of that game, the first-person mode. I love that shit, dude. I love it. I love the first person. I wish you could do it in all range mode. I'd play the whole game first person if I could. I hate that it's not completely first person. It was so cool, dude. In the cockpit, you see the lines from the creases in the glass. So cool.
Is that why it's not your number one? Because you can't be first person the whole time?
I guess so. I have a reason now. Yes.
Sure. But what I really like about that game is
what was your favorite feature of the game?
My favorite I don't know if you necessarily call it a feature, but the fact that I could replay the game, and if I did things slightly differently, I'd get a different selection of planets to play. And it was one of the first times I played a game that could essentially be an entirely different game the next time around. Basically, you could do it in such a way, because I didn't know anything about, Mr. Nintendo, my friend, had to show me...
God damn it. Fuck that guy, dude.
My friend Mr. Nintendo had to show me, in the first level, if you did, I think it was you flew under all the arches and did all that stuff, then you get the alternate boss in the first level.
Yeah.
And then you could go to these other planets later and do all
this stuff. Yeah, to save Falco, too.
Yeah. That's the other, save Falco. And there are all these sort of stipulations that if you play the game in particular ways, you're doing totally different shit.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of those things, I felt really rewarded for being thorough and trying different things in the game. And it was one of the first games where I beat it and then I went back and I was basically able to play an entirely different game.
Right. How'd you feel about the Blue Marine?
I actually really liked that one. It was fucking underwater.
You did or didn't?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I remember back in the day, I loved it when I got to play that level. Yeah. But nowadays I'm just I don't know.
Well, I
don't think it holds up as well.
Maybe it's not.
Maybe that's why it was just one level and it never came back. But
maybe it's not as good as the rest of the game. But I remember
it was definitely switched it up.
I kind of had gotten on a roll when I was playing it, because I'd gotten to on like an alternate path I had never been on before, and I kept hitting new planets. Like I remember there was
you kept hitting the A button.
Yeah, what is it? They were on the Landmaster, and there was the train and everything.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I was like, "What the fuck?" It was like I was playing a totally different game, and like I had friends who had Star Fox 64 who had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. Because remember, this is the days before YouTube and stuff. I mean, YouTube existed, but it wasn't very popular yet.
I mean, you could find porn on YouTube back then.
Could you?
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Okay. Take your word for it. But I just remember, this was before you could look up a lot of gameplay videos and stuff on YouTube. So if you didn't know how to do something, like you either had to, like, a lot of times you'd have to have one of those fucking strategy guides, or you'd have to know someone who knew, or maybe if you knew the right website to check out. It was really kind of the Wild West back in the day. Like,
yeah, I remember the books used to be a lot more popular.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The actual
strategy guides.
Yeah, the walkthrough books or whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah.
But, if you didn't have one or you didn't have a friend or anything, then you were kind of fucked for a lot of that stuff. And so I just remember having unlocked, it was like a whole new game in Star Fox that most of my friends hadn't heard of or hadn't played yet. And there was just something about that, just having this immense replay value. I remember a couple times I played through and there'd be like 1 or 2 planets I hadn't been to. I was like, how do I get to you? And I'd be like pointing at the screen at the planets, like, how do I get to you?
I really liked, in the screen where you're viewing the Lilat system. Yeah. I loved how it was just a model you could kind of play with and move around and, zoom in and out and pan left and right. I thought it was really cool that you could, they added like an element of perspective to, the star system that you're in. Yeah.
I just remember, like, I hadn't beaten Andros in that game, though. That was the big thing. For a long time, like, I kept getting to Andros, and I just kept blowing it. Which, happens. And it's kind of an arcade style in the sense you don't really save the game or anything. Like, you kind of play it all in one sitting.
Yeah, and then you got your score at the end. Kind of like, it's like Galaga in a way.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's short enough that if you cleared out a few hours, you could play through the whole game in one of the paths.
I think any game that's on rails kind of ends up feeling kind of like an arcade game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's set up like an arcade game as well. Like, it's not like there's so many levels and you save it and you come back. Like, you play it.
Actually, like, the arcade, like, the new age, like, arcade Star Wars games are kind of like that as well. Like, you're kind of on a track, you're on rails.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember we were playing that at the fucking Battlefront opening night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the midnight release party for Battlefront. They had like a fucking...
Strangely, I might have had more fun with that game than I had with...
the actual Battlefront?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that one in the future. That's so disappointing. I'm more disappointed than you are in Battlefront.
Yeah, you are.
That's not even what we're talking about in this podcast.
I mean, I got the game for free, too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it to you.
It's the Star Fox and the Star Wars.
But Star Fox.
Fox Wars, that's a great game.
The thing is like I said, you fail and then you restart, basically.
If you run out of lives.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I used to fail horribly fighting Andros as a kid. And I remember it was... My great-grandmother had actually died that day. And, like, I was just feeling horrible. And, like, it was just not a good day for me. And I sat down and I played through the game because I was just trying to cheer myself up. And I finally beat Andros, and it was, like, the first time I smiled after that happened. And it was like...
Dude, that's, like, the exact opposite for me.
Your great-grandma was born, and then you played Star Fox, and it was the first time you cried when you won?
No, actually, oddly enough, Star Fox 64 is actually the most emotional game for the N64 I ever played.
Okay.
In fact, most of the times when I beat the game, I'd find myself in tears.
Interesting.
I don't know why, but just something about that. I mean, it's a really well-constructed game, but it's not. I wouldn't say it warrants like an emotional, kind of take from it.
You're right.
I think what it was is like when I actually received my own Nintendo 64, because remember, like I said, it was my stepbrother at the time had it, and I only played it on weekends. When I actually got my own 64, I got Star Fox for it, and my dad got it for me. And at that point, I was still living in Virginia. I'd miss my dad quite often, and I think perhaps playing through the game and beating it kind of, just made me kind of miss my dad.
Sure. And that's why? It's just that connection?
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, that's understandable, I'd say. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't have that same connection. my childhood, as we've established, was actually quite a bit different than yours. So, so obviously that's going to mean different things to us. But before we get to your, before we get to your number one, I feel like we should address some honorable mentions.
That's fair enough.
Just as we did in the last one, I think that was important to do.
But you did. I didn't have any.
Yeah. Well, there's. I feel
all my
like,
honorable mentions were in my top 5.
So I think, just to break the tension here for a moment, your number one is not Mario 64.
Yeah, it's not.
And Mario 64 didn't make my list, and
it's an honorable mention, but like, I don't really like the game that much. To
Mario
be honest.
64 is a revolutionary game. It pretty much sort of cemented the concept of the 3D platformer. None of us are going to argue that it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I can't deny that.
That it isn't a landmark title, but much like the music of Mozart and the writings of Shakespeare, it is a work that is more appreciated than necessarily liked, at least for us.
Hey, I love Mozart. What are you talking about?
Do you?
Yeah, man.
What's your favorite piece?
There's so many. Like,
No, but like that stuff, like I look at it, it's like it's definitely a work of art.
I just prefer Mario in a side-scrolling like scenario.
I like Mario Galaxy and Mario Sunshine actually, but
I never got to play them.
Mario 64, maybe it is so overplayed for me, at least in my opinion. Like, I've played it, I've been to every level so many times, I've heard every piece of the music, and the music's incredible. It's probably the music and the graphics are the two things in the game I think that are still the best today.
One thing that's interesting about Mario 64 is that game featured the addition of a lot of new sound samples for Mario, like actual sounds that Mario makes, that turn up in later games.
Yahoo!
Yeah, like that. Whoo! Like that kind of stuff. It's just like, because a lot of that was in the Super Smash Bros. Games.
That's
and,
true.
You know, in later Mario games.
Wah!
I think that's the first game where he actually says, "It's a me, a Mario."
Yeah, well, I mean, the other games didn't have voice acting, so no, yeah.
The Mario found his voice.
Finally.
Actually, yeah. Wait, all those voices I'm talking about are the original ones.
Yeah.
They're not additions.
Yeah, no. It definitely added to Mario, and like I said, it's a revolutionary game, and none of us
For
are
Mario
arguing that.
and for games in general.
But like every time I play that game, like I feel like I played it a million times before. Even though I really haven't played it a million times before, I feel like it's just one of those games that is so universally loved. There's nothing new in that game.
Yeah.
You're not going to find anything that hasn't been found 100 times over. You're not going to see anything that you probably haven't seen.
Never say
already.
never. You can find some weird ass glitch.
Maybe.
And be like, oh, that's cool. 5 seconds later, all right, switch it off.
Yeah.
Time to play Star Fox.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, Mario
Yeah.
is just one of those games, it is so known, and, you know, we've seen and heard so much of it.
You know what that game
much more.
needs?
What?
It needs a day-night cycle with zombies at nighttime.
That would certainly spice it up.
You hear me, modders? Make it.
Do it. We won't pay you or anything, but we want you to do it. But that's kind of the reason why Mario 64 isn't on our list. Like, I got a lot of love for Mario 64, got a lot of appreciation for it, and we wouldn't have half the games that we love to play if it weren't for Mario 64.
Mm-hmm.
I am in no way trying to say that it's a bad game, but it's just not my jam. When I was a kid, I liked it, and I think I've just seen it so much, and I played it so much, and it's just, it feels really kind of stale to me at this point because I've experienced it so much in so many ways.
Yeah.
Another honorable mention for me, Banjo-Kazooie is not on my list.
That's
And
a
part of
good
the
one.
reason for that is I kind of feel like, in controversial opinion, that Donkey Kong 64, to me, in a lot of ways, is kind of that Banjo-Kazooie 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that collection kind of mechanic where you're always grabbing stuff and there's like
It's really all the game is.
a million things to collect.
I
It's got
just
the
recently got
platform.
my hands on this one.
A Banjo-Kazooie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually picked it up at a flea market.
And was it... I know you've been liking it, but...
Yeah, I'm actually really impressed with just all the different things Banjo and Kazooie can do.
Yeah.
Like, you got a lot of different tricks at your
Yeah.
disposal.
And with Donkey Kong 64, I feel like when you have the addition of all those characters, all of which have their original abilities.
Yeah.
Kind of like in Banjo-Kazooie, there's a lot of stuff you can do in that game.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, Donkey Kong 64 is like Banjo-Kazooie 2.0.
Yeah. One thing I gotta say about Banjo-Kazooie is it's hard. Actually,
it's a difficult
I'm
game.
stumped on the second level. Mm-hmm. There's stuff I can't find already. I'm just like, God damn it. Really?
Say Majora's Mask is another game that's not on my list.
That's a good one to put on there.
It's one of those that, I mean, it could have honestly...
It's like a darker version
of Ocarina of Time. And that's
it's like a little slightly more mature version.
Yeah. And that's kind of my point, is like Ocarina of Time... I think either of those could have occupied that
Poor
one
Majora's
spot.
Mask, man.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time just like overshadows the shit out of that game.
But I feel like either one could have been in that spot on the list, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so... Because I would say it's no better or worse than Ocarina.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a toss-up for me. I went with Ocarina. I felt like Ocarina was the first one I did, so it feels fresher to me.
Right.
And Majora's Mask doesn't quite feel like this crazy experience because I think I experienced Ocarina first, as you're intended to.
Yeah, they kind of just build on what's already been there. I think another honorable mention could be pod racing.
Pod racing, yeah. Actually,
we haven't really talked about any N64 racers in this podcast.
I was actually going to touch on that next, but pod racing, yeah, the pod race. It's weird because people are kind of divided on Star Wars Episode 1. I actually kind of liked the pod racing in that movie.
Yeah.
I actually thought that was actually one of the cooler aspects that they brought to the table in that movie, because you don't really see a lot of sports in the Star Wars movies or anything. Like, what do they do for recreation? What do they do for entertainment? Pod racing, that's something. It's interesting. And I feel like it's a good premise for a video game.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up really well. And it was a fun game. Another game that I left out... Mario Kart 64.
Okay, yeah, of course. I played that. I've only played it once recently, at a friend's house. Yeah. It's a Mario Kart game,
and probably that's probably my problem is I played the later Mario Kart games first.
Yeah,
and it really kind of plays like a stripped back version. Like, it's different for Smash Brothers because I actually played the 64 Smash Brothers game first.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
But like going to Mario Kart 64, which is perfectly fine, and if there were no other Mario Kart games, you know, you wouldn't be in a bad place if that's all you had. But having played all the other games, it's like, okay, seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Move it along.
I think there's a really important honorable mention we have to mention.
Okay.
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye, yes. That was a tough. For I kind of, if there was going to be a number 6, if we were doing top 10, that would have been number 6 on my list. It was very close.
That's one of the most well-received titles, I'd
Probably.
say.
And it's a weird omission because it's not like Mario 64 where it's like I just don't love it as much as everybody else does. GoldenEye is just one of those games where when I look at it critically as a whole, it is not as good as some of the aspects of the game.
Yeah.
I'd say multiplayer overshadows the actual single player in the game.
Oh, yeah. We've touched on that before.
Yeah, and it's a good... I will retract a statement I made, though, in the past during our split screen podcast. I said that GoldenEye was a great game based on a shitty James Bond movie.
Yeah.
I watched GoldenEye again recently. It was great. I'm sorry, Pierce Brosnan. You were incredible as James Bond. I know you're a religious listener to our podcast, and I'd like to apologize for making those statements about GoldenEye. It's actually a good movie.
I'm so confused.
Go back and...
I really thought you were about to, like, agree, like, and say, yes, it's still a bad movie.
No, I'm taking it back. Like, it's actually a good movie.
Okay.
I just hadn't watched it in a while.
You know me, I'm not really a Bond guy.
It's Pierce Brosnan's best Bond movie. So, I apologize for saying that about the movie. It's actually good. The game is incredible, though.
How many people have we apologized to in this video?
I've apologized way more than you have, I think.
I've already apologized to Japan. Let's see, I've apologized. I think did we apologize to JonTron?
Yeah, we did.
Who gives a fuck? Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck you. I'm sorry, John. Immediate apology. No, but
hey, his real name's Takar. All right.
No, it's not. But regardless, GoldenEye is a game. It is certainly a game. It's a good game. It's just not. I feel like it's kind of weighted where the multiplayer is a bit better than the single player, and there are just parts of it that shine brighter than other parts. It's just I think as a whole package is not as generally excellent as some of the other games I listed.
Agreed. Hey, I think I have the perfect final honorable mention to segue into my number one.
Okay.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing. Okay.
Another racer.
All right.
I think we did touch on this slightly in our split screen, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
My favorite thing about that game was the roster of characters. Because there were new characters that I'd never really played before, except for one character who I played every time because I knew exactly who that motherfucker was. Conquer the Squirrel.
And that is Duncan's number one, Conker's Bad Fur Day, right?
Ding, ding, ding.
So, for the uninitiated, tell us what Conker is all about.
Well, I'll try to not sell this to the audience again, but Conker's Bad Fur Day is the craziest game you will ever play. Probably. At least for the Nintendo 64.
Your strong setup, then you kind of backed off a little bit. You were like, it's the best game, it's the craziest game you're ever going to play. Probably. It's like you were coming on real strong, and then you backed a little. Now I'm doubting your pitch.
This is a game developed by Rare, the Nintendo 64. It was one of the literal last games to ever be put out for the Nintendo 64. It was very late. It's probably one of the reasons it didn't do so well, among other reasons.
Yeah.
But this is a rated M for mature title that looks a lot like something like Donkey Kong 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. It's rated M for blood and gore, intense violence, strong language, alcohol and drug references. Basically anything that could make a game rated M is in this game. And it's just so novel to see all of those things applied in a game like this.
Yeah.
Mainly in the story mode is where all of these are coming into play. The versus mode, multiplayer, it's very violent and there's some cursing and stuff in there. But it has the most just insane, off-the-wall, crazy, hilarious story mode. If you play this game for the first time, you're gonna laugh your ass off. You're not gonna know what to expect, and that's the best part about the game. Arguably, is it's just it throws you've got parodies in that game. Just ridiculous dialogue and crazy characters.
And that's another thing about that game that kind of sets it apart is full voice acted dialogue. Mm-hmm. Which
with the comic book like word bubbles,
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, and not a lot of N64 games had it. Now, the audio kind of sucks because it's still N64, but that's one of the benefits of being a later title.
Yeah,
Nintendo 64 game. And it's funny. I was reading about it. I think it was E3 where they debuted, where they announced the game and stuff, and they had where people could come in and play it. It was like the adults only section. And they had a bar in there where you could actually get drinks, get drinks and play Conker's Bad Fur Day.
That's great.
Try it out. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting that they were doing that. And it really is. It is M for a good reason.
Yeah. For good reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's why it had a hard time hitting because obviously this was the year 2000. The ESRB was still kind of new, so the rating system. Not everyone was necessarily super familiar with it yet. And you had, because Jesus Christ, this was 16 years ago.
Well, I don't even think that N64 was really that renowned for having rated M titles.
No,
I really feel like the game actually may have done better if somehow it was released for PlayStation.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, but kind of what I'm getting at is, so adults would see that, and the first thing they see isn't necessarily the M rating. The first thing they see is the fucking fuzzy
the cartoony squirrel on the box.
Yeah, it is cute, cartoony, and made by Rare, who kind of specialize in cute and cartoony. It's one of their other strong suits. And parents saw that as well, I think, and so
which resulted in a lot of little kids playing a game they probably shouldn't have been playing.
And so I don't think it found its audience. I feel like it wasn't sold the way it needed to be sold. Like if it had been advertised kind of like how Deadpool was advertised today, like in some limited capacity of that, because Deadpool knew how to sell a superhero movie as a hard R movie for adults. Like they figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
I think Conker's Bad Fur Day, the marketing Like, what they did at E3 was a good start,
Uh-huh.
but I feel like, generally speaking, it didn't seem to me like they knew how to sell a hard M rated N64 game about a fuzzy squirrel. I feel like they hadn't figured out how to do that.
No one's figured out how to do that. This is the only game that's like that. Can you think of another game that has such a childlike just visual to the game that just seems, at first glance, it's definitely a game for kids, but it's completely not? I can't think of another game that does that.
It's not a game exclusively, but like South Park.
Yeah, but that's it's a cartoon. We're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like I said, it's not a game, but South Park kind of does that. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Like,
I guess so. Yeah.
like the shitty simple animation with the annoying kid voices, but it's like really not for kids. Like really not for kids.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different thing. But no, you're right. Selling cute kitty things to adults and intending it for adults is not an easy task.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of the adults who consume cute kid-like things are doing it out of nostalgia. Like when we go back and we play Banjo-Kazooie, or we play fucking Donkey Kong, or do shit like that. It's not because it's marketed to us, but because we have some nostalgic connection to it.
Yeah.
So,
sadly, this game never got a sequel. It got a reboot, or like a remake.
a remake that was...
I've never played it. I'd like to, just because I love the original game so much. But I mean, I've seen videos and stuff. Of course, I'm curious.
Yeah.
It sucks. I mean, it's kind of funny that we just said that like no other game developer or anything has, tried to make a game like Conker's Bad Fur Day. And the people who made Conker's Bad Fur Day have never tried to make another one either.
No.
Like, it's just such a... Like, the main reason why this game, in my opinion, is so great and why it's my number one is because it's just such an epic standalone game.
Yeah.
Like, this game it's in its own little box of greatness that's far different from any other game you'll ever play. And it's just, it's so great to have just such a unique game. I love this game.
Yeah, I know you do, and I love the game too. It wasn't on my list per se because honestly, my experience of the game has been through you.
Right.
And I played the campaign in parts with you and played multiplayer with you.
Right.
So, like, it's not really a game I've gotten to experience alone and, like, actually gotten to sink my teeth into per se. But it even admiring it kind of from a distance, which is kind of what I have to do because I've also never owned it. And I'm not likely to with the fucking price this game is going for.
I just had a thought.
What?
So, as I said before, we mentioned my number one game. We talked about how Conker was in the Diddy Kong racing game, right?
Yeah.
Which means Conker is an extension of Diddy Kong, right? It's a Diddy Kong character. Which means he's... Like, can you imagine Diddy Kong in a Conker's Bad Fur Day scenario? Imagine if they did that.
That'd be weird as shit.
Does that mean that, like, because Diddy Kong's part of the Donkey Kong thing, right? And when Diddy Kong has his own game, he's got Conker in there. So is Conker part of the Donkey Kong world?
My only gripe with this is in one of the Mario Kart games you could play as Baby Mario and you can race against regular Mario.
Yeah.
So it's just pure bullshit.
I guess, but they were all characters affiliated with each other in the same universe.
I guess it's not canon. I mean, it doesn't matter anymore because, like, the licenses are split now.
Yeah.
Because Rare has Conker and Nintendo has Diddy, so.
I guess.
So I guess it doesn't count
technically,
at all.
Microsoft has Conker.
Yeah. Well,
and
Microsoft
Nintendo
has Rare, who has Conker, so. Yeah, you're right.
Well, when you're putting it as Nintendo,
yeah,
has Donkey Kong, then Microsoft.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, so it's even more opposed than that because Microsoft.
Damn it, Microsoft! You better be doing some shit with Conker, real shit.
They are, unfortunately. There's a game called Young Conker coming out, and it's.
I don't want to talk about that.
Well,
don't. It's cool, yeah, whatever, but it's not great.
You guys, you could check out Young Conker if you want. Duncan doesn't want to talk about it.
It's fine. I'm not, like, I don't hate it.
I wish it was anything but Conker, right? Like, am I the only one here who's like, it's fine?
You could have played as Master Chief.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Just be anything but Conker. Make your own fucking fuzzy character.
Well, since you brought it up, you may as well just give a quick statement about what it is.
Young Conker is a virtual reality game, pretty much created by Microsoft. They were showing kind of a demonstration video of it. Basically, It's a platformer that uses the scenario that you're in. So if you're in your room wearing the VR headset, it's basically going to detect the surfaces in your room, and then you play as Conker, platforming around.
Baby Conker.
Yeah.
Is he in a diaper? I hope he is.
I don't think so. He's like a kid. You play as like young Conker from Conker's Bad for a Day, platforming around your room. That's all they've shown us thus far.
It has to be rated E, right?
Probably. It looks horrible. So that's young Conker.
Man, I was really hoping for some angsty teenage cursing from Conker in that game.
Starts listening to Fall Out Boy.
Lights up a bong.
Oh, God. But regardless, so yeah, that was our top 5 N64 titles. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope. Just the fact that we really want a new Conker's game.
Yeah, and I want the next Star Fox game to be incredible. So, hope for both of those. We do got that Star Fox game coming. Star Fox, what is it called? Zero?
Star Fox Zero, yes.
Zero, yeah.
That is coming out.
So we'll see where it comes.
I will be getting that.
Ooh, also, I
might be able to do a Let's Play on that. That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. Also, I'm on my phone right now, and there's an interesting bit of video game news that's kind of breaking right now.
Let's hear it.
Kingdom Hearts 3 is still not out. That's all. This has been
enthralling.
This has been Mason.
This has been Duncan.
And you just watched
The Anatomy of Game.
If we said anything that was factually incorrect, please leave a comment. Tell us why we suck, or send us a letter. If you liked what we said, you liked this podcast, like or subscribe or whatever it is you people do. We'll catch you next time.
Stay golden.